Part 54. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 531. Chapter 531. Is it intentional or unintentional? On weekdays, even when the prince and princess saw him, they were restrained and did not dare to say one more word or take one more step. But this little girl is actually a scoundrel, smart and naughty. Not only did he not find this girl annoying, he was actually happy that she was close and real. "I'll ask someone to get you a prescription soon. Take it with you when you leave the palace." The emperor tapped the little girl's head. Jiyan smiled brightly, quickly thanked him, and turned around to say hello, "Second uncle, grandpa village chief, hurry up and cut the melon for the emperor." Li Laoer smiled again and bowed his hands to the emperor, then rolled up his sleeves and fished out the jade melon from the ice water bucket. The village chief also took 2 golden fruits from another bucket. The head quickly took the young and carried him to a small table. The jade melon and golden fruit were chilled with ice water. When cut open, they felt cold and the sweet taste spread all over the surface. The emperor was pleased to see it and asked, "There is a drought this year. Is the field not affected?" The village chief calmed down and replied, back to the emperor, "The weather is indeed dry today and the fields are short of water, but what can I say? If everyone is more diligent, this little trouble can be overcome." Before, the villagers irrigated the ground 3 times and finally saved these jade melons and golden fruits. Although everyone was very tired and their skin peeled off due to the sun, at this time, seeing the melons and fruits opening, I feel like it's not in vain. The emperor couldn't help but nod, and felt a little more relaxed. Speaking of difficulties, everyone has them, they happen every year, but the important thing is to face them and actively solve them. As an emperor, is he worse than a group of peasants? Soon, the jade melons and golden fruits were cut. Because the chief performed the operation himself, there was no need to test the poison. The emperor picked up a piece of jade melon and bit into it. It was cool and sweet, and the irritability in his heart disappeared without a trace in an instant. Good melons, this year's melons seemed to be sweeter than in previous years, the emperor couldn't help but praise, causing Li Laoer and the village chief to smile with rows of white teeth. The village chief tried his best to suppress his pride and excitement, and nodded repeatedly, "Your Majesty is so awesome, you can taste it right away." In fact, the jade melon and golden fruit seemed to like drought, especially the golden fruit, which is frighteningly sweet, like a candy jar. "Eat it too," the emperor called to Li Laoer and the village chief, and finally took a piece of jade melon to Jiyan with his own hands. Jiyan saw the chief standing aside half bent, so she gave him her piece. The chief was startled and wanted to refuse, but the emperor said, "You can eat what the princess rewards you." Hey, the chief quickly knelt down and thanked with a smile, "Thank you, Your Majesty, and thank you, Princess." Jiyan took another piece of jade melon and ate it in small bites, like a little squirrel holding a big fruit, with a face of satisfaction and joy. The emperor was infected and felt that the melon in his hand was 3 times sweeter. He chatted with the good news. Although the questions and answers were a bit childish, they made him extremely relaxed. Unconsciously, he ate 3 pieces of jade melon and 2 pieces of golden fruit. Occasionally, he would ask Li Laoer and the village chief how the crops were in the fields, whether there were many guests in the valley, and whether the orchards would bear many fruits this year. Li Laoer and the village chief responded carefully, without any exaggeration, and were truthful. They said what they had to say, so that the emperor could understand the real life of the people outside. At this moment, a young suddenly came in from outside, moved to the steward's side, and whispered a few words. When the emperor saw it, he asked, "What's the matter?" The chief smiled and said, "Your Majesty, the Queen and the 3rd princess have brought you sour plum soup." The emperor frowned slightly, but still said, "Let them come in." The head went out to invite someone in person, and soon brought in a beautiful woman in her 30s. The beautiful woman is tall, wearing a bright red palace dress and a red gold phoenix crown on her head, which makes her brows look more sharp and serious, and less soft and warm. Following the beautiful woman was a 6 or 7-year-old girl who was a little taller than Jiyan. She was wearing a goose yellow slanted shirt and a snow satin skirt. The little girl's facial features are slightly ordinary, but the red gold pendant 8 treasure necklace hanging around her neck adds a bit of noble air. Li Lauer and the village chief quickly knelt down and kowtowed. Jiyan also jumped off the chair, but before he could kneel down, he stepped on the edge of his skirt and fell directly to the ground. The emperor laughed loudly, bent down to help the little girl with the red face, and said with a smile, "Last time, your adoptive father said that you wanted to lose weight, but now it seems that your weight loss results are not very good." After saying that, he patted Jiyan's knee again and said, "Okay, you are so prostrate that you have given a great gift to the queen. If you are blessed again, it will be considered a blessing." Jiyan quickly knelt down to salute the queen and princess. The queen stretched out her hand to support Jiyan and said with a smile, "Is this Princess Kangol? It's true that Yugzio is cute. No wonder the Marquis doesn't want to get married and have children. Give it to this girl." This was said casually, but the meaning didn't sound like a compliment. Li Lauer and the village chief, who were kneeling, touched each other out of the corner of their eyes, and they both felt excited. The good news seemed not to be heard, and he climbed back to the chair next to the emperor and sat down, talking to the queen innocently. "Queen, do you also know my adoptive father? Then do you know when my adoptive father will come back?" When the adoptive father left, Fu Niu held him in her arms and refused to let him go. The adoptive father said that he was going to kill the enemy and get back half of the river and the sea for Uncle Huang. He also said that if he didn't come back, let Fu Niu. "I came to see Uncle Huang, and Fu Niu dreamed of her adoptive father last night." As she spoke, her eyes became red. I have to say that the fat girl's mouth was pursed and she wanted to cry but didn't dare to cry. It was really heartbreaking. The emperor immediately pulled off the veil to wipe the little girl's tears and coaxed her, "Fu Niu, don't cry. Your adoptive father sent a message yesterday, saying that he will return to Jiangnan in half a month." Really, Jiyan was pleasantly surprised and immediately smiled. Fu Niu just learned how to steam egg custard, and she will cook it for her adoptive father when he comes back. When my adoptive father comes back, my father will come back, and my uncle Daong will come back. Grandma won't have to stand at the entrance of the village looking around every day, and my mother won't have to secretly shed tears at night. The little girl spoke quickly and urgently, obviously she was very happy. The emperor sighed inwardly and gently rubbed the little girl's hair. Speaking of which, the Li family are just ordinary people. They even suffered a lot of hardships due to the delay in going south, and the place they were assigned to stay was a gravel beach. If you put it to others, I'm afraid even if you don't scold him as the emperor, you should complain a few words. But the Li family never said no to him. They worked hard to open up wasteland, plant melons and fruit trees. Even if they became a fiefdom, they still paid taxes, money and grain. Now the family has sent their children and grandchildren to go to the battlefield to kill the enemy with the Marquis. It is really for Tianwu, for this useless emperor who has lost half of his country, that I have devoted all my loyalty and strength. Even if it's very small. Looking at the civil and military affairs of the Manchu dynasty, the rich and powerful families in Mandu city only know how to get benefits from them all day long. Compared to the Li family, it is really shameful. He thought for a while and then told the queen, "Don't talk about the Marquis not getting married in the future. All the dignitaries in the family have counted, and no one can match him. It makes sense for the Marquis to like the Li family, and no one can stop him. In addition, ask someone to collect some cloth jewelry. Remember to choose the best ones and give them to the Li family to commend them for their loyalty and filial piety." The queen's eyes flickered, but she still stood up and responded. Li Lauer and the village chief quickly kowtowed to express gratitude. Jiyan jumped down from the chair this time, landed firmly on the ground, squatted down and thanked the emperor. The emperor felt even more amused when he saw her smiling. It's just like your adoptive father said, Fu Niu is just a little money addict, and she will be happy when she gets good things. After chatting for a while, the queen and princess ate 2 pieces of jade melon. Li Lao and the village chief kept their heads down and could not raise their eyes, so they were about to leave. Jiyan also felt that it had enough of a sense of presence, so he decided to stop it when it was good. If you don't want to, the queen suddenly said, the emperor, the 3 princesses have not played any companions. The rare master of Kangal County entered the palace. Let her stay for a few days and accompany the 3 princesses. 3 more, the Bayazai recently spread the flu virus, and my son contacted our whole family with his own strength. Occasionally, updates may be delayed, so please bear with me. Thank you guys. Autumn is here, everyone should pay attention to the changes in temperature and temperature. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 532. Chapter 532, You can't afford to provoke him, and you can't avoid him either. The emperor didn't think much, lowered his head and asked for the good news. Do you want Fu Niu to stay for a few days? Uncle Wang's home is very big, and Fu Niu will definitely like it. Jiyan felt alarm bells ringing in her heart. Although she didn't know the reason, she always felt that the queen had ill intentions toward her. But the emperor obviously has good intentions, so it would be inappropriate to refuse directly. Her heart suddenly changed, and she replied with a blush, Uncle Huang, Fu Niu also wants to play with the princess sister, but Fu Niu doesn't come home at night, Grandma should be worried about it. Can Fu Niu play with the princess sister? Play for a while and then go home in the afternoon. Of course you can. The emperor likes fat girls to be filial, and he also knows that the old lady of the Li family sees this girl as an eyeball, so he said, the flowers in the imperial garden are blooming just in time. You and the 3rd princess can go and play. I will send someone to take you back this afternoon. After saying that, he turned to Li Lao and the village chief, you don't have to worry about it, Fu Niu will not be wronged in the palace. Your Majesty's words are serious. Li Lao felt very reluctant, but he still responded with a smile, Fu Niu is a child who is very pampered by her family. If she is naughty, please forgive me, Your Majesty. I understand, you go ahead. The emperor waved his hand, and Li Lao and the village chief kowtowed again before retreating. The queen wanted to prepare a reward for the Li family, so she smiled and said a few words, and then went to work. Leaving the good news behind, he followed the 3rd princess and a group of young eunuchs and maids to the imperial garden. The so-called imperial garden is just a larger garden. If it were the original imperial garden of the imperial palace in Kyoto, it would still be somewhat worth seeing, but here in the new capital, it is just a converted palace, and the imperial garden is only a dozen acres in size. The varieties of flowers and plants of various colors are not so numerous and expensive. Jiyan followed the cold-faced 3rd princess, admiring the flowers along the way. She originally wanted to find an opportunity to smuggle some good varieties into the space. It's a pity that the more I look at it, the more disappointed I become. She was thinking about finding some excuse to leave the palace early. Out of the blue, the 3rd princess in front suddenly stopped, and she almost bumped into her. The 3rd princess hugged her shoulders, pushed the eunuchs and maids aside, then pointed at the good news and shouted, kneel down for me, princess. Hearing the good news, he was confused and didn't understand what was going on with this little girl. Didn't you say you wanted to play with her? Does the so-called play mean kneeling back and forth? She glanced at the eunuchs and maids. Although they were 4 or 5 steps back, their ears were straightened and they were staring at them from the corner of their eyes. They could definitely hear what they were saying. She thought for a while, acted ignorant and innocent, and asked, Sister Princess, Don't you want to play with me? Why do you want me to kneel down? My mother said that kneeling down is to apologize. What's wrong with me? I made the princess angry. How old is the third princess? She was a little confused when asked by the good news. After all, whenever she asked her to kneel down, the maids and eunuchs would immediately do the same. When she saw Jiyan tilting her head and looking at her but not kneeling, she became a little annoyed. She found an excuse and shouted, "Who asked you to wear the same dress as this princess?" Jiyan glanced at her skirt and was speechless. The third princess wore a pleated skirt made of snow satin, while she wore a moon-white bud skirt. This flower bud skirt was sewn by the embroiderer in the home mansion based on the sketch she drew. It can be said that she was the first to wear it in Tianwu. How could it be the same as the princess? Needless to say, the third princess just didn't like her and was deliberately looking for trouble. She endured it again and again, but she really had no good impressions of this ordinary-looking princess. They are good-looking, and they can be called cute if they let themselves be willful. You put on a big face like a steamed bun and put two dead fish eyes on it, and you come out to scare people. Who gave you the courage to do this? The eunuchs and maids on the side obviously felt that the princess was being unreasonable, but they were slaves and hesitated to persuade her. Unfortunately, this idea is just an idea and no one has ever put it into action. The good news cannot wait for outsiders to intervene, so it can only go into battle in person. She pinched the hem of her dress in grievance and asked pitifully, "Princess, can't others wear the same dress as you?" "Of course, I'm a princess." "Who are you? You dare to steal my father's, no, steal your skirt." The third princess thought that Jiyan was scared, so she proudly raised her chin and scolded her, almost spilling the beans. But Jiyan understood clearly. It turned out that the little princess was jealous because she was getting along so well with the emperor's uncle. She really wanted to roll her eyes and curse. "That's your biological father. You are like a wooden peg. You don't talk to your father, you don't get close to your father, and in the end you blame others. Isn't this typical? If you can't eat grapes, others can't eat them either." But she could just curse a few words in her mind, but she couldn't say them seriously. This is Tianwu, where imperial power is supreme. His father is the emperor and he is the princess. Her neck is not hard enough to fight to the death with the princess, not to mention that her great supporter, the Marquis, and her adoptive father, is not at home. If you can't afford to offend, you can only hide if you can afford it. So, she became more and more aggrieved with red eyes. "Yes, princess, I understand. I will go home and change out of my skirt." After saying that, she turned around and left. The princess hasn't vented her anger yet, how could she be allowed to leave, so she subconsciously reached out her hand. Jiyan's scalp hurt, and when he found that his braid was pulled, he became really angry. The naughty kid is the most annoying. If you don't clean it up and teach her a lesson, I'm really sorry for her persistence in finding trouble. So, she pushed forward with all her strength, and the princess subconsciously pushed harder. Unexpectedly, Jiyan suddenly fell on her back. The princess couldn't hold it back and fell to the ground. The eunuchs and maids were startled and rushed forward. This one shouted, "Princess, how are you? Where does it hurt from the fall?" The one shouted, "Call the doctor quickly." Jiyan seemed to want to get up, but couldn't stand firmly and fell on one of the princess's legs again. A palace maid quickly pulled her up and pushed her aside. The princess fell down and still wanted to speak, but suddenly she covered her stomach and shouted, "Ouch, my stomach hurts." The maids and eunuchs were all wondering, shouldn't their butts hurt? Why did their stomachs hurt? But in the blink of an eye, the princess was already rolling on the floor in pain, screaming, "Help, Weavua, my stomach hurts. Queen Mother, Father. Help." The maids and eunuchs were frightened when they saw that the princess was not cheating, and became more and more confused. Jiyan stood aside, with a face full of fear and surprise. In fact, the little hand in his sleeve turned over and took a silver needle back into space. The queen heard the commotion and rushed over. The princess was already rolling on the ground like a wild pig, with snot and tears all over her face. She was already average looking, but now she couldn't even look at her. "What's going on?" The queen's face turned livid with anger. She wanted to pick up the princess, but when she extended her hand, she felt a little disgusted and took it back. A nun behind her quickly stepped forward and hugged the princess, covering up the master's embarrassment. The maids and eunuchs were as frightened as quails, and they all knelt down, not daring to say a word. The third princess, on the other hand, did not forget to complain even though she had a stomachache. She pointed at Jiyan and shouted, "It's her, she's the one who hit me. I have a stomachache. Weevu, mother, please take revenge on me, my stomach hurts so much. Weevu, help me mother, help me." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 533. Chapter 533. Behind the naughty child, there must be a naughty parent. Even if he is a little ugly, he is still his biological child. There is no reason why a mother should not care about her children, and the same is true for the queen. What's more, she didn't like Princess Kangal at all, so she ordered, "Lock Princess Kangal up until the princess recovers." After saying that, she took her nanny, hugged the princess and left. The eunuchs and maids who were kneeling on the ground dared to get up and look at the innocent good news again. Even if they felt guilty in every way, they did not dare to disobey. So the two palace maids stepped forward and led Jiyan to a small house next to the imperial garden where tools were kept. Jiyan was pushed in and the door was locked. One of the young eunuchs ran to report the matter to the chief eunuch. The maids did not know whether they were afraid or they wanted to seek advice from the stewardess, so they left. In short, for a while, not even a ghost was seen outside the tool cabin. Jiyan lay on the window, looked at it, and snorted coldly. No wonder it is said that the imperial palace is the richest and darkest place in the world. This man's heart is rotten to the core. More than a dozen palace maids and eunuchs all knew that she was unjustly accused and that the princess was targeting her and bullying her. But just now, no one said anything fair. The queen is even more interesting. She doesn't ask anything, just hugs the princess and leaves. He said he was keeping her in jail until the princess was well treated before releasing her for further questioning. But since she didn't ask clearly, what does it have to do with her? Doesn't this mean that she made a mistake? Sure enough, prejudice can be inherited. Behind the naughty child, there must be a naughty parent. Fortunately, she is an old cucumber with green paint, not a real child. Otherwise, she would have left a shadow in her heart after being locked up in the dark room. She looked out the window again to make sure there was no one, then stepped into the space. There had just been a fuss, and she was also thirsty and hungry. So, she took 2 hot meat buns from the front yard and ate them in big gulps. She also got a piece of watermelon and went for a walk in the back garden while nibbling on them. Sanjo was lying on the stone and posing. When he saw his master coming in, he quickly stepped forward and rubbed his trouser legs, as if he were being intimate. Jiyan knelt down and stroked the fox's tail twice, and couldn't help but click on its forehead and said, "Are you a vixen? Can you tell me clearly? If you are a vixen, you will turn into a handsome man in a few years, be obsessed with that third princess, and then abandon her. Give me a good excuse." The little fox didn't know if he understood it, so he swung his 3 tails and rolled directly to the ground. Jiyan's heart was so excited that she thought she was about to witness the highlight moment when the vixen transformed into a human form. As a result, the little fox rolled, then jumped up the tree, and its tail hit the cage on the side. Poor little green snake, it became atop again, spinning rapidly involuntarily. Jian was extremely disappointed. He threw the melon rind in his hand at the little fox and cursed, "Idiot, the handsome man we promised, bullying Xiaolu is nothing." The little fox would mistakenly think that his master had joined the game, so he jumped around more and more, until the cage almost turned into an afterimage. The poor little green snake just can't speak, otherwise it would have shouted, "Master, what are you doing here? Isn't it good to just let this stupid fox show off, okay?" Jian couldn't face this stupid fox and this unlucky snake anymore. He ran to the pig pen and chicken coop to do some work. He turned around and saw the rabbit family that had grown much stronger again, so he decisively ran out. "I'm so upset." In the queen's cunning palace, 3 imperial doctors were surrounding the princess, carefully diagnosing and treating her. But the princess's pulse was normal, her cry was strong, and she didn't have any external injuries. She didn't look sick at all. But the princess said she had a stomachache. The 3 imperial doctors were worried because they were sweating on their foreheads and wished that their hair would fall out. At this time, the emperor actually came over, and the 3 imperial doctors quickly knelt down. "What's going on? Why does the 3rd princess have a stomachache? Did she eat something bad?" the emperor asked immediately, obviously not knowing the whole story. The 3rd princess was a little happy when she saw her father coming in person. She sat up and shouted, "Father, my stomach hurts. That Li Jian hit me, oh, father, let me make the decision." The queen also looked distressed, acting like a loving mother, and sighed. The princess thought she had a playmate, so she took her to the garden specially. Who would have thought that the child was so wild and untamed that he actually hurt the princess? The emperor frowned, subconsciously unwilling to believe it. "No way, Fu Niu is very well behaved." "Father, she just bullied me. She also said that I wore the same skirt as her and that I was ugly." The 3rd princess was afraid that her father would not believe it, so she jumped down and pulled off her skirt to show it to her father. As a result, the emperor didn't look at her skirt, but asked, "Don't you have a stomachache?" The 3rd princess subconsciously covered her stomach and said strangely, "Oh, why doesn't it hurt anymore?" The emperor's face darkened, and he turned to look at the 3 imperial doctors. "Can you see why the princess has abdominal pain?" The 3 imperial doctors felt as if they had eaten Coptis chinensis and were so miserable that they could not open their mouths. The princess is obviously not sick, so let them say whatever they want. To be honest, the princess is jealous. If you don't tell the truth, the emperor will punish you. Finally, the eldest doctor replied, back to the emperor, "The princess may have been in the garden just now because of the wind, and her stomach was swollen for a while, and she had some pain. Now the emperor came over, and the princess was happy, so, well, relief some. Your Majesty is such a shrewd person." How could he not hear that the subtext of these words is that the princess is pretending to be ill? His face turned darker again, he raised his hand to signal the imperial doctor to go out, and then asked sharply, "Who can explain what is going on? If you don't understand, then you don't have to live." The maids and eunuchs immediately knelt on the ground. The eunuchs and maids who followed Jiyan and the princess earlier were mostly from Cunning Palace, but the eunuchs were all from the imperial study room. Seeing that the emperor was angry at this moment, a young who wanted to rise to power took the risk. He walked forward on his knees and recounted the conversation between the princess and the princess in a matter-of-fact manner, including the fact that the princess pulled the princess's braid and caused him to fall. But the bad thing lies in seeking truth from facts. Because what everyone heard and saw was that the princess bullied the princess over the skirt. The princess wanted to leave. The princess pulled the princess's pigtails and fell down with too much force. She also said she had a stomachache and framed the princess. The third princess turned pale and tried to defend herself. "No, she was the one who caused me to fall. I only got a stomachache after I fell. The queen felt guilty and regretful, so she just dealt with it without asking a few questions. At this moment, she quickly wanted to add a few words, but the emperor did not give her this chance. The emperor looked at the third princess coldly and said, "Okay, you said Princess Kangal bullied you, what about Princess Kangal? Call her here and confront her face to face." Unlike he finished saying this, the hall fell into an eerie silence. The emperor was a little confused, but after thinking about it, he stood up and asked the queen, "What did you do to Princess Kangal?" The queen quickly replied, "Your Majesty, please calm down. No matter what I do, I will never punish a child. I just ask someone to take Princess Kangal to have a rest. I will ask someone to bring Princess Kangal over. No need, I will go in person." The emperor stood up directly and looked at the queen, with obvious disappointment in his eyes. As the mother of a country, the queen should be kind, gentle, and respectful, but the queen actually angered a child today. I am really disappointed. Disappointment. After saying that, he walked out and left the queen behind, with a pale face. She really didn't know whether she was regretful or angry. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 534. Chapter 534, Pretending to be Pitiful, Who Can't? Jian rested her chin on the small windowsill of the tool room and gnawed on the fruit boredly. Just when she was wondering if she could take advantage of it secretly, she finally saw the emperor coming with a large group of troops from a distance. She quickly pulled out a chili pepper from the space and wiped 2 handfuls on her eyes, immediately bursting into tears. Then she lay on the ground again, rolled a few times, and quickly put on a poor beggar's makeup. The emperor asked someone to open the door of the house. The slanting sun shone into the house. Among the old and dilapidated wooden furniture, sat a fat girl holding her knees. The originally clean clothes were in a disgraceful state, her fair and plump face was also darkened, her big eyes were red, and there were tears hanging on her eyelashes. She was really pitiful. At this moment, the guilt and anger in his heart reached its peak. "Fu Niuer, don't be afraid, the emperor is here to pick you up." The emperor squatted down and stretched out his hand towards the fat girl. Jian seemed a little dazed, and it took a long time for his big eyes to focus. Then he got up, rushed into the emperor's arms like a small cannonball, and burst into tears. "Weevu, Uncle Huang, Fu Niuer is so scared. Weevu, Fu Niuer really didn't hit the princess sister in the stomach. It's so dark here, Fu Niuer wants to go home, wants her grandma, wants her mother. Weevu, foster father help. My foster father, please save Fu Niuer." The little girl was really frightened and choked with sobs, which made the emperor feel even more guilty. Okay, Fu Niuer is not afraid. Uncle Huang is here, it's all the fault of the third princess. Uncle Huang punished her and vented Fu Niuer's anger. The emperor didn't say this to coax the child. He really wanted to treat her well. Punish the third princess. Fu Niuer was his little guest. As a host, the third princess didn't treat her well, and she actually bullied her. That's it, children all have likes and dislikes, maybe even if the two of them don't get along, they can just talk about it. But the princess pretended to have a stomachache, made people upset, and blamed it on guests who were younger than herself. This is a moral problem. I thought that the queen took the 3 princesses with her on weekdays and taught the princess well. Now it seems that he has misjudged the person. The empress is angry with the child just because the marquis does not want to marry a cousin from her mother's clan. Even the princess was influenced by the queen and behaved so badly. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. He personally hugged Jian and got up and returned to the imperial study. The head was very discerning and had already found a clean set of clothes. The palace maid waited on the good news to wash her face, comb her hair, and change her clothes. Jiyan originally tied her braid with only 2 pearl chains, but now the pearls also fell off. I don't know where they fell. The head presented a set of extremely valuable head and face jewelry. Small and exquisite hair crown, with red gold as the base and small rubies inlaid into the shape of flowers. A small necklace with a red gold dragonfly hanging on it and big red eyes. There is also a red gold necklace with gemstones as big as dove eggs. A pair of large, hollow bracelets with ruby inlays. In short, there is a complete set of hair, 7 pieces of jewelry, and each piece is an absolute masterpiece. Jiyan was still crying sadly just now, but now she was happily playing with her jewelry and had a smile on her face. The emperor watched from the side and gave the chief an appreciative look. The chief breathed a long sigh of relief. The emperor stretched out his hand to straighten the dragonfly pendant on the fat girl's chest, and said with a smile, "Do you like it, Fu Niuer?" "I like it. Thank you, Uncle Huang." Jiyan squinted her red and swollen eyes and smiled, revealing a row of white teeth. At the end, she suddenly stopped smiling and asked a little at a loss, "Uncle Huang, is this the jewelry of the princess sister? If Fu Niuer wears it, will she be angry?" The emperor quickly comforted the sensible fat girl, "Don't worry, this was originally a birthday gift prepared for you. Every time your adoptive father comes to see me, he always steals some good things. Uncle Huang will simply give it to you himself. Don't worry about wearing it on. Uncle Huang left you to play with the princess today, which makes you feel wronged. You will still come when you should come to play in the future, but then you can only eat delicious food with Uncle Huang, and you won't be allowed to play with the princess, okay?" "Good. Okay," Jiyan nodded, agreed happily, and said in a tender voice, "Grandma said, Fu Niuer is not silver and will not be liked by everyone. Sister princess may not like silver, but Uncle Huang does. Fu Niuer also likes it from now on. When the dim sum shop makes money, Fu Niuer will share half of it with Uncle Huang, so we can be considered partners." The emperor couldn't help laughing. The only one in the world who dared to ask the emperor to open a shop in partnership was this ignorant fat girl in front of him. The chief on the side quickly handed over 3 dim sum recipes and said with a smile, "Then these dim sum recipes will be regarded as the capital of the emperor's investment." Fortunately, the imperial chef was generous and gave 2 more famous dim sum recipes, otherwise the investment would still be cancelled. "Seems a little thinner." The emperor joked, "Oh, it's a loss, it's a loss. I gave you the dim sum shop, and now you give me Fangzi, so I only get half of the shares. It's a bit uneconomical." Jiyan blinked his big eyes and argued hard, "Uncle Huang, it's very hard for me to be the shopkeeper. I have to think about the snacks, settle the accounts, and if someone steals them, I have to catch the thief. It's not easy." The emperor and the chief laughed again, and the emperor said, "Okay, Fu Niuer is happy, I have given you everything, you can do whatever you want. Uncle Huang will wait for you to hand in the account book during the Chinese New Year, and earn money to buy delicious food. Uncle Huang, don't worry, I promise to complete the mission." Jiyan imitated the soldiers under his adoptive father and performed a clumsy military salute, which made the emperor laugh again. Li Laoer and the village chief left the palace and did not return to the village at all. They squatted outside the palace, hoping to wait for the good news to come out and go home together. "I originally thought I had to wait until the sun set, but soon after the sun set, the head personally took Jiyan's hand and led a group of young eunuchs out carrying trays. Li Laoer and the village chief rushed to greet him. Jiyan ran forward with a smile and showed off her collar to her second uncle, "Second uncle, second uncle, look. This is my birthday gift from the emperor." Li Laoer could tell that his niece had cried almost at a glance. He tried his best to suppress the question that was about to burst out of his throat, and responded with a forced smile, "It looks good. Fu Niuer looks good in anything she wears." After saying that, he bowed to the chief and said, Fu is not naughty, is she? Please take care of me, chief eunuch. The chief turned away and refused to accept the gift. Instead, he bent down and apologized, Uncle, I don't deserve your gift. It's my fault that I didn't take good care of the princess. When the princess was playing with the princess, there was a little quarrel. The emperor punished the princess severely. He moved the princess out of Cunning Palace and sent 2 strict nuns to discipline her. The emperor liked the princess very much and said that from now on, the princess you can come to the palace to play at any time. Having trouble? Li Laoer's eyes flashed, he didn't believe the statement at all. But he still replied, it is normal for children to quarrel today and make up tomorrow, it doesn't matter. The head quickly asked the young to put all the things on the Li family's carriage, and said with a smile, these are the rewards from the emperor to the princess. The queen has prepared them separately, and I am afraid they will be delivered tomorrow. Okay, thank you for your hard work, Mr. Li Laoer said a simple reply without any intention of greeting, then bent down and hugged his little niece and got into his carriage. This is the 3rd update. My little one has received his 6th injection. I hope he will get better soon. I am going bald after staying up all night. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 535. Chapter 535. People are under the roof. Almost as soon as he sat down, Li Laoer asked, Fu Niuer, what happened? The village chief came in later, his eyes also full of urgent concern. Jiyan raised her finger to her mouth to signal them not to ask, and whispered, go home first. Li Laoer immediately shouted, and Zhang Feng and Zheng He drove the carriage and started running. The 4 young men from the village had already driven back in the mule cart. After all, there is a lot of work in the village, and they are selling jade melons. It is a busy time, so we cannot leave too many people waiting here. It wasn't until they left Dongcheng and were walking on the busy streets that Jiyan said, second uncle, the queen and the princess bullied me, but I didn't suffer, and they didn't take advantage. What? Why did they bully you? Li Laoer frowned and asked, hugging his niece tighter. The village chief also said, yes, the queen and princess, we didn't offend them, so why did they bully our children? Jiyan patted the second uncle on the shoulder and said comfortingly like a young adult, it's not a big deal. It seems that the queen wanted to introduce a daughter-in-law to my adoptive father. My adoptive father did not agree and wanted to give me the whole mansion, so the queen became angry. Dislike me. The 3rd princess was ugly and had a bad personality. She was jealous because Uncle Huang liked me. She said that I was wearing the same dress as her because I didn't understand the rules, so she asked me to kneel down. I didn't want to kneel down, so just I wanted to get away, but she pulled my braid again. Li Laoer subconsciously held his little niece's braid, but it had been combed again and it was not messy in any way. Jiyan added, I pulled the princess down together and secretly pricked the acupuncture points on her feet. She had a stomachache and rolled all over the floor. She was very ugly. Jiyan couldn't help but giggle when she thought of the embarrassed look of the 3rd princess. Li Laoer and the village chief looked a little better. The village chief asked, what happened later, were you discovered? Jiyan shook her head and responded, the queen is here and took the princess back to Cunning Palace for diagnosis and treatment by the imperial doctor. However, I didn't give her any medicine. I only pricked the acupuncture points. Her stomach only hurt for half an hour and she was fine. The 3rd princess was particularly bad. She told the queen that I had beaten her, so the queen locked me in a small room in the garden. I waited for a while, and Uncle Huang came to see me. I brought mosquito repellent powder in my purse, so I wiped my eyes, which made me cry, and rolled all over the floor, making me dirty. The emperor saw how pitiful I was and was very angry. He punished the queen and the princess and even compensated them. Give me lots of good stuff. As she spoke, She grabbed the dragonfly embedded in the necklace and showed it to her second uncle and the village chief. She shook her little head more and more proudly. When I left the palace, the manager said that the third princess saw the set of jewelry before and asked for it. The emperor didn't give it to her. I'm afraid she'll be even more angry. Li Laoer took a deep breath and used all his strength to suppress the rage in his heart. Although the little niece spoke in an understatement and tried her best to draw their attention to the collar, how could he not hear the danger and grievance in it? No matter how smart the little niece is, she is still a child of 5 or 6 years old. How frightened she must be when she is locked up in a broken house. The princess is the queen's child, and the queen feels sorry for her. Then other people's children are not children. Li Laoer's eyes were bloodshot. He couldn't bear it anymore and cursed in a low voice, "Damn it, just wait." The village chief grabbed Li Laoer's sleeve and listened carefully to what was going on outside. There was nothing unusual, and then he comforted him, "Uncle, this is not the place to talk. Walls have ears, so don't talk even when you go home." Jiyan really didn't want his second uncle to be worried or angry, so he tried to speak more relaxedly. Actually, in her opinion, although she was a little cowardly and pretended to be pitiful to get through today, the princess also suffered a lot, and she did not break up with the queen, which was already very good. Although the Li family has the support of a marquis, 2 titles, and a first-grade wife, in the final analysis, these are all given by the royal family. As the old saying goes, people have to bow their heads when under the eaves. The royal family is the eaves above the heads of the Li family and the eaves of all the people in Tianwu. The Li family and she both want to keep their heads down, so they have to grow strong enough, and tall enough. The eaves can be automatically retracted in order to avoid being broken. But for the time being, neither she nor the Li family has the ability, and they don't want to suffer a blow, so they can only deal with it coldly. But reason and emotion are 2 different things. In the second uncle's mind, he obviously knew that this was the best way to deal with the situation, and the result was not bad. But emotionally, if a child is bullied and cannot fight back, he will definitely hold his breath. Jiyan quickly hugged the second uncle's neck and earnestly persuaded, "Second uncle, I really didn't suffer, and I'm not afraid. The small satchel I brought before contained snacks, and I ate them all. I wasn't hungry at all. I want the emperor to punish the princess, so I act pitiful. Second uncle, don't be angry. Grandma will feel distressed when she sees you when you go back. I will never enter the palace again, and I won't see that princess, or I can wait until my adoptive father comes back and ask him to help me vent my anger." Li Laoer felt even more depressed after hearing this. The children of the Li family had been wronged, and the Li family had no way to vent their anger, so they still wanted to find the marquis. But he thought 1,000 times and could only respond, "Okay, second uncle, don't be angry. Let's be nice and don't let grandma see it when we go back." "Okay, pull the hook." Jiyan pulled the second uncle's little finger, glad to hide the matter. Li Laoer felt more and more uncomfortable the more he thought about it. An important sign of a child's growth is reporting good things rather than bad things. When I was wronged, I ran home crying and told everyone I met. When I felt wronged, I went home and smiled and said I was doing well. This mental journey can only be gained by enduring enough hardships. The Li family hopes that their children will grow up, but they don't want them to grow up in this way. The village chief sighed and took out the pipe and pot. He did not dare to light it for fear of inhaling the smoke to the children, so he could only smoke it twice. The old man was a little confused. He originally thought that the village was already very powerful and life was very good. The Li family had soared into the sky with titles, fiefs, and children who were promising. But it seems that there is still not enough. Crushing under the glow of the sky, the carriage finally returned to the village. And the excitement over the melon field is coming to an end. Buyers took the jade melons and golden fruits they bought one after another and hurried back to the city. If they were late, the city gate would be closed. When the sun was just setting, Uncle Zhao stopped picking melons. He had a ready excuse because all the ripe melons were sold out. It will be bright tomorrow before we can go to the fields to continue searching. Otherwise, it will be dark and you will crush a few melons and you will suffer a big loss. In this way, the buyer refused to be empty-handed, so he bought a lot of melons and fruits from the three villages of Dawaisha village, Dawangzhuang and Xiaoangzhuang. Li Zheng and the villagers in the three villages were very happy. Although the money they sold back was much less than that of the new village, they finally opened their doors. When Uncle Zhao was making arrangements for Lu to carry the silver box back to the village, he happened to see the Li family's carriage coming back, and everyone rushed forward happily. As soon as the village chief jumped off the carriage, the villagers started shouting, "Uncle Village Chief, has the emperor eaten the melons from our village?" "Yes, what does the emperor say? Does the emperor like it?" The village chief is a master at winning people's hearts. He waved his pipe and pot and shouted, "Do you need to say that? The emperor loves to eat it very much. He praised that this year's melons are sweeter than last year. The emperor gave me a reward and it will be delivered tomorrow." In the village. "Seriously, oh, great," the emperor said, "the melons we grow are sweet. If I had known earlier, the price would have gone up." The villagers were talking all over the place, but their faces were full of smiles. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 536. Chapter 536. The highest level of lying is half truth and half falsehood. Li Lao hugged Ji Yin and then got out of the car. He smiled and said to everyone, "Everyone, pack up and go home early. It's been a tiring day. The number of patrols in the village will be doubled at night, so be careful at this time. Yes, yes, hurry home for dinner and patrol at night. Especially the melon fields, give me a strict look. Not to mention who wants to secretly pick one or two to taste the freshness, even if the wild beasts from the mountains come down, they will harm a few." "Ah! This is all money," the village chief followed. The villagers all responded loudly and walked into the village in groups. Jing Glizheng and others also came over to have a few words with the village chief, then closed the stall and went back. In the yard of Li's house, Tao Hongying and Dong Mei were cooking in the kitchen. Mrs. Li and Mrs. Wen were sitting under the eaves of the veranda, picking up the soles of their shoes. And he was helping to sort out the twine. She couldn't help but keep looking out of the courtyard and sighed, "It's all my fault for being so old. Why did I get so sick last night? Otherwise, should I follow the princess into the palace? I wonder if the princess has forgotten the rules?" Old Mrs. Li was also thinking about it, but she smiled and said, "Don't worry, Fu Niu is smart, even if she breaks any rules, she can cover it up. Besides, she is just a child, no one can care too much about her." Shui Ling was fetching water in the corner of the courtyard and shouted, "Old madam, let me go into the palace with the young lady next time. If someone bullies the young lady, I can protect the young lady." Old Mrs. Li couldn't laugh or cry when she heard this, and said angrily, "Forget it, your temper is like charcoal, it can be ignited at a moment's notice. I'm afraid that if you enter the palace, you will be more likely to get into trouble than Fu Niu." Everyone was laughing. At this time, the carriage arrived in front of the door. Ji Yin jumped off the carriage, picked up her skirt and ran to the yard. She threw herself into Grandma's arms with a smile and shouted, "Grandma, I haven't seen you in 3 years. Wow, I miss you so much." Old Mrs. Li was so overwhelmed by her granddaughter that she couldn't breathe. She finally took her little granddaughter off her body and said, "Did you drink in the palace? What nonsense did you silly girl say? We've only been gone for less than a day, why are there 3 people, years ago? The book says that 1 day without seeing her is like 3 autumns. 3 autumns are 3 years, Ji-yin hugged Grandma's neck and twisted around. Having seen how evil the people in the palace were, she cherished the warmth of her own home even more. At this moment, I wish I could stay in Grandma's arms and never come out. Old Mrs. Lee didn't know her granddaughter's thoughts, so she was coaxed into laughing. She kissed the fat girl and said, "Mr. Wen and your Uncle Lu are drinking tea in the house. Let's go and see her first." "I know, Grandma," Ji-yin responded cheerfully, and got into Mrs. Wen's arms for a while, then ran to the house. Li Lauer had already been drinking tea with Mr. Wen and Lu's Haiheng. The 2 people originally came to get jade melons and golden fruits, but seeing the excitement of the opening of the garden, they sat in the field and ate watermelons. It was getting late, so they simply stayed. Stay one night. The front yard of the Li family is now dominated by men. The children are not at home, Li Zhensheng has also gone to the south, and it is only Li Lauer himself, so it is convenient for them to live there. Even Mr. Wen didn't plan to go back next door, and said he wanted to have a drink with Li Lauer and Lu's Haiheng in the evening. Ji-yin bowed to Mr. Wen and Lu's Haiheng, then ran back to the house in the backyard, pretending to find the little fox, but in fact he released it from the space. The little fox was so happy that he ran back to the front yard with a few jumps. Women are not naturally resistant to furry animals. Mrs. Wen hugged the little fox and smiled widely. Ji-yin leaned aside and masturbated a few times, before being pulled away by Grandma. Mrs. Lee touched her granddaughter's dress and looked at the blonde crown on her head. She felt helpless. "Didn't you say that you went to the palace to give melons to the emperor? Why did you come back after robbing so many good things?" Ji-yin smiled and replied, "It's not robbery, Grandma, this is my birthday gift from the emperor." Mrs. Wen interjected, "Isn't Fu Niuer's birthday a month away? Why did the emperor reward her so early?" Ji-yin changed her dejected look and replied, "Uncle Huang asked me to play with the 3rd princess. The 3rd princess didn't like me and quarreled with me. Uncle Huang was afraid that I would be sad, so he gave me a birthday gift in advance." Ji-yin didn't want to tell her family what happened in the palace and make her family worried, but she didn't tell her at all because she was afraid that her family would not know the inside story and treat the queen and the 3rd princess as good people, so they would be unprepared. So, at this moment, she said half-truthfully, "The queen is not good either. She wants her adoptive father to marry a relative of hers as his daughter-in-law. If her adoptive father doesn't marry her, she will be unhappy. How stingy." Sure enough, Mrs. Lee didn't think about her granddaughter being bullied. After all, her granddaughter was alive and kicking and didn't look like she was suffering. She just asked Mrs. Wen, "Does the queen's family have a suitable girl? Is this because she has taken a fancy to the marquis?" Mrs. Wen shook her head and whispered, "For a wealthy family like theirs, it doesn't matter whether they have a suitable girl or not, and it doesn't matter whether they like the marquis. What matters is that the marquis now has military power and is reused by the emperor." Mrs. Lee understood instantly and couldn't help but sigh. Needless to say, Master Ho is now a piece of fat that everyone wants to take a bite of. Mrs. Wen laughed when she heard this and advised, "Auntie, don't persuade the marquis after he comes back. The marquis knows what he is doing." "I'm not trying to persuade you," Mrs. Lee quickly waved her hand and responded, "A man like Mr. Ho is not a match for ordinary women. Besides, my daughter-in-law is going to be with Mr. Ho for the rest of her life. Mr. Ho, why don't you marry someone you like?" Mrs. Wen felt relieved and lowered her head to tease the fat girl. "Are we, Fu Niuer, sad? Fu Niuer is so cute, why doesn't the princess like to play with her?" Ji-yin spread her chubby hands indifferently, "If she doesn't like it, just don't like it. There are many people who like me, and she is the only one who likes me." Everyone laughed again when they heard this, but Mrs. Lee sighed, a little worried, and couldn't help complaining to MRS when, I don't know what happened to Funiur. She has not been welcomed by the girls since she was a child. There are a few similar girls in the village. My eldest daughter doesn't come to play with Funiur on weekdays. MRS Wen understood a little bit, so she helped the old lady clear her doubts. Auntie, little girls are naturally attentive when we play together on weekdays. We always compare who wears what kind of skirt and what kind of headband. Our Funiu is well fed, fat, well dressed, and doesn't have to work on weekdays. The little girls don't dare to be envious and jealous, but they can't help but feel inferior, so they don't want to get close to her. When MRS Lee heard this, she slapped her thigh and shouted, "That's right. I was wondering before, but now that you say it, it really makes sense. Not to mention the children, we live a good life, and our neighbors live a good life, but our own life is poor. And it's a little awkward." MRS Wen smiled and said, "Yes, Auntie. But don't worry, Funiur is still young. From now on, when I go out as a guest, I will take her for a walk. Maybe I will meet some girls I like and make some friends to play with. Okay, let Funiur learn the rules again, so that she won't be naughty and make others laugh." Old MRS Lee nodded, thought for a moment and said, "That princess in the palace is probably jealous of our Funiur's eloquence. I want to make the emperor happy, so I don't like Funiur. I have to say that she has discovered the truth." End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 537. Chapter 537, Life is a long time, we'll see. Ji-yin shrank her neck subconsciously. The fact was that she hugged her thigh too actively, which made the daughter-in-law jealous. MRS Wen quickly said, "The princess is also a child, so this is inevitable. From now on, Funiur will rarely come into the palace and will not meet the princess again. Whether she likes her or not, it doesn't matter. This is reasonable." MRS Lee told her granddaughter, "Don't go out and have fun in the future. In the past few days, pick up your sewing and reading. Don't be lazy." "I know," Grandma Ji-yin quickly nodded in agreement, extremely well behaved. At this time, Li Laoer walked out of the house. He called Shui Ling, handed over the empty teapot, and then said to his mother, "Mom, Funiur is the princess, and I'm afraid she will have to enter the palace often in the future. Hiding is hiding. Don't go there. The palace is not like our family, where people's hearts are too complicated. In my opinion, you can learn the rules carefully, but reading and sewing are more or less enough. After all, the family does not expect Funiur to take the imperial examination or become an embroiderer. But Divine Dr. Zhang wants Funiur to go there a few more times. It's good to learn some self-defense skills. We don't have to worry about Funiur wherever she goes." Although MRS Lee is the head of the family, her sons have all gotten married and started businesses, and she is willing to listen to their opinions. What's more, when my son spoke this time, it was for the sake of his granddaughter. Think about it carefully, reading and sewing are indeed not as important as the ability to save your life. So, she responded cheerfully, "Well, from now on, I'll go to Dr. Zhang in the morning and study and learn needlework in the afternoon. In a moment, I'll invite Divine Dr. Zhang here and say hello. First we'll see if Funiur really has this talent, and then we'll think about becoming a disciple." "Okay, Mother, I'll go and invite you right away," Li Laoer said to Mr. Wen and Lu Haiheng, who were in the same room, and then left the yard. His eagerness surprised MRS Lee a little, but she soon started setting the table, and her doubts were put aside. As soon as the food was served, Dr. Zhang came back with Li Laoer, accompanied by the village chief and Lu. "I don't know if the anesthetic that Dr. Zhang worked on was successful, but he looks good." So, MRS Lee said that she would send good news to him in the future and study pharmacology seriously with him. Divine Dr. Zhang immediately agreed, and even made the request unceremoniously, My shabby thatched cottage is really not what it looks like. Take advantage of your free time to build me a small courtyard with 2 entrances. Fu Niuer will come and go in the future, it's more convenient to go out. Okay, Li Lauer said immediately, there are only 2 more days until the melons are sold out, and there is still half a month before the autumn harvest. This period of free time will be enough to build a yard. The village chief uncle also said, it happens that several families in the village are planning to marry their daughter-in-law in winter. The houses are not enough for them and they need to build wing rooms. It will be cheaper to buy wood and stones together. Lu Biatu also said, tomorrow afternoon, I will ride to the stone field to ask. Everyone was talking and eating, which was very lively. The good news stayed in the palace for most of the day, which was also a waste of energy. After eating and drinking, I felt sleepy. Mrs. Li just finished eating, so she took her granddaughter back to take a bath and go to bed. It was not until her granddaughter was snoring that she heard the door to the courtyard, so she opened the window and whispered to her daughter-in-law who had just come in, Hong Ying, why are you finishing your work? Jinro and the others have gone back. Tao Hong Ying smiled and said, yes, mother. The second brother, Mr. Lu and Mr. Wen were in a good mood and wanted to have a few drinks. I prepared some side dishes for them, so they were busy for a while. I know, you should rest quickly. Men are willing to drink a few drinks if they get together, Mrs. Li told her, closed half of the window, and then lay down next to her granddaughter. When my granddaughter is older, the grandparents and grandson usually sleep in separate rooms. But for some reason today, Mrs. Li just feels a little uneasy. Only by staying aside like this can she feel better. In the front yard, there is a Kong table in Li Lauer's room. On the Kong table were placed a plate of fried peanuts, a plate of boiled edamame, a plate of cucumbers, and a plate of fried fish. Li Lauer took the wine pot, filled the glasses for Luz Haiheng and Mr. Wen, and the 3 of them drank it all in one gulp. Before Li Lauer could speak, Mr. Wen said, Yusheng, do you have anything to do in the palace today? Let's talk about it and let's discuss it. Li Lauer smiled and asked, how can you tell, sir, that there is something on my mind? Luz Haiheng picked up a peanut and threw it into his mouth, grabbing the conversation and saying, you almost have to show your unhappiness on your face. It's okay to deceive the whole family, but you won't be able to deceive us. Li Lauer sighed, poured wine for the 2 of them, and then told the story about Ji Yan being bullied in the palace. Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng treated the good news as their own nieces, and their faces were cold when they heard it. The Wu family is getting more and more hopeless. It's so shameless to send a daughter to win over the marquis, and to take it out on a child, Mr. Wen cursed angrily. Luz Haiheng also sneered and said, the emperor was suppressed by the queen mother and was unable to take charge of the throne. The daughter of the Wu family has become the queen, but the Wu family still runs to please the queen mother just to avoid being suppressed. It really has no spine at all. I didn't expect that now, seeing that the marquis has made great achievements in battle, and cooperates with the emperor both externally and internally, he really has the potential to regain the country, and he wants to take advantage of it. One queen is not enough, we need a marquis in the family. The Wu family really has a good appetite, and they are not afraid of stuffing themselves to death. After that, they told Li Lauer the details of the Wu family. Li Lauer heard that he was serious and asked a few more questions. Mr. Wen hesitated for a moment and asked in a low voice, Yusheng, do you want to vent your anger on Fu Niuer? Li Lauer shook his head and laughed sarcastically, how dare I? She is the queen, and our Li family is just a bunch of people who just had a good life. I'm afraid they don't even take notice of our Li family. We are blocking the car with our arms, so, of course I won't do anything stupid, but... He raised his hand to drink the wine from the glass, straightened his face, and said, however, life is too long, and the wind and water are changing, who can predict the future? Mr. Wen and Luz Haiheng looked at each other and nodded. Mr. Wen said, as long as you have an idea in your mind, you will see everything later. Lu Haiheng also said, for the time being, Fu Niuer is not allowed to enter the palace. I think the Wu family will still have to work the marquis so as not to anger Fu Niuer again. Li Laoer's eyes flashed, and he turned to talk about the opening of Baiwen Garden. Mr. Wen and Lu Haiheng both agreed to bring their relatives and friends to support them, and Li Laoer thanked them. The three of them drank more and more, chatting all over the place, and it wasn't until midnight that they broke up and fell asleep. Early on the next morning, Lu Haiheng and Mr. Wen both hurried back to the city. Mrs. Wen planned to stay for half a day longer. It would be okay to go home and join in the fun here in Zinken. As for giving jade melons as gifts, just write the post and give it to sister-in-law Kaiyan. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Jiyan followed Grandma and Mrs. Wen, and was about to go to Huanyang's house to sit and talk about how to learn needlework in the afternoon. But before he could go out, the team from the palace to deliver rewards arrived. Perhaps she was reprimanded by the emperor yesterday, and the queen was frightened. She wanted to compensate the Li family and show her virtue, so the reward this time was particularly generous. There were 6 carriages, followed by more than a dozen palace maids and eunuchs, and a group of 100 imperial guards. They were so powerful that they were afraid that others would not know that the queen had rewarded the Li family and the new village. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 538. Chapter 538, Sandpipers and clams fight, fishermen gain. Not to mention the whole new village was in a sensation, even the guests from the hot spring valley, who came early to queue up to buy melons, and the villagers from Daweisha village, Dawangzhuang and Zhaoangzhuang all came to watch the excitement. Su Shi, the who led the team, was told to be very polite to the Li family. The Li family wanted to place an incense table, but he didn't let it go. He just asked the Li family and everyone in the new village to kowtow and thank them. Li Laoer went to the small town of Luoan, and Li Zhensheng, Li Laosan and Li Laosi were not there. Only Mrs. Li, Jiyan, and the village chief can come forward to entertain the guests. Mrs. Li asked someone to cut a jade melon from Jingshui town. The leading was not polite and ate 3 pieces in one go. At the end, she smiled and said, "Old madam, princess, you don't know something. I sent it to you yesterday. The jade melon in the palace is so popular." The emperor gave a few to the queen mother, and the rest were distributed to the ladies of each palace. All the masters agreed. Today the queen sent her servants to deliver rewards. After hearing about it, the ladies of each palace also added some. Everyone smiled and thanked them. No wonder there were 6 cars. It turned out that the queen was just the leader, and there were others in the reward. Soon, all 6 cars' contents were moved. Most of them are made of silk and satin cloth, and there are some small ornaments, the most eye-catching of which is a full-length mirror. Perhaps it came from overseas. The full-length mirror is half a person's height. It has a bright mirror surface and a wooden frame inlaid at the back. It can also be rotated and adjusted to the angle. It is carved and hollowed out. It looks very delicate and noble. This is a novel thing, no one has seen it before, and their eyes are wide open in shock. Occasionally someone is shaken by a mirror and is frightened by his own clear appearance and screams and runs away. Not only did the leading not laugh at him, he was very satisfied. He expected to go back and tell the queen, so that the queen would be happy. When the queen gave up the full-length mirror, she had a look of pain on her face. Everyone could tell that she didn't want to give it to her. But because of what happened yesterday, the emperor not only moved the 3rd princess out of Cunning Palace, but also found a strict nun to discipline her. On the queen's side, although her dignity was preserved, there was no punishment. But on the pretext of praying for blessings, the emperor asked the queen to copy 30 Buddhist scriptures within a month. This is equivalent to being grounded for a month. Every empress in the palace secretly laughed at the queen, but this time they took the initiative to give her a reward, firstly to show off her face in front of the emperor, and secondly to make the queen feel disgusted. That's why the empress sent rewards to the Li family in such a big way, using only her own name along the way. In fact, it was just you coming and going, each with her own agenda. No one in the village knew that there were so many twists and turns, and Mrs. Li didn't know that the queen had bullied her granddaughter. This thing was mostly an apology, otherwise she would have probably smashed the full-length mirror on the spot. But the village chief knew that when he came home last night, he was angry at the queen for being unreasonable and felt sorry for the child's suffering. He couldn't express his anger and was so depressed that he didn't fall asleep for most of the night. At this moment, he was not very happy after seeing so many rewards. The leading said a few more words, then returned to the palace with Li Jiaxi's hard-earned money in his arms. The villagers wanted to stay to see what rewards they were getting, so the village chief shouted, "Don't watch the excitement yet. The melon fields are still busy. We can't be short of manpower, so hurry up and collect money. Put these things away for now, don't let them run away." Besides, most of them were given to the princess by the queen, and the rest are for the old lady to see what she can share with everyone, so we can feel happy together. The villagers all responded with smiles, and then hurried to the fields. In fact, they either covet these things or they are rewards from the palace. Everyone feels proud and always wants to see more and touch more. But as the village chief said, the broken gold beach belongs to the princess, and the melons are also presented to the princess. I heard that the emperor and queen were very happy, so they were rewarded with so many things. Logically speaking, there is nothing wrong with the Li family leaving everything behind. But Aunt Li is not a stingy person and will definitely give some to everyone. Sure enough, as soon as the men left, Mrs. Li took the old and young ladies to open the box. Needless to say, the full-length mirror and small ornaments are definitely reserved for good news. There is also a box, which is a small jewelry specially given by the queen to good news. The rest, after Mrs. Li asked her granddaughter, she took out most of the cloth and gave one share to each family in the village. The things coming out of the palace are not bad in quality. After all, the whole country is working hard to support this family. The boxes of cloth I received this time are of excellent color and pattern. There are also several pieces of bright red silk and satin, the color is extremely bright and eye-catching. Half a horse is enough to make a wedding dress, so those who have young girls at home, or those who are planning to marry a daughter-in-law, happily share a portion, and their faces immediately burst into smiles. The remaining dark-colored cotton is used to make new clothes for the men in the family, and the women keep it to sew new coats for themselves. The soft cotton cloth is picked out separately to make clothes for those with children at home. Finally, everyone looked at each other and saw that each family had distributed 3 or 4 pieces of cloth, which were too big to hold in their arms. Orange Mrs. Li looked at several little girls in the village, staring at the brocade in the box, her eyes shining brightly. She touched the hair of several little girls and said with a smile, "This is brocade. It looks good, but the clothes cut out are not as comfortable as cotton. Even Fu Niu doesn't wear it on weekdays. She only wears it when she goes out for guests." Pretending. The mothers of the girls quickly pulled their children away and said, "Auntie, don't worry about them. Children love novelty. Fu Niu is a princess, so she can wear brocade. They are just ordinary girls. It would be nice to have a coarse cloth skirt." Old Mrs. Li smiled, then asked Aunt He to open the warehouse, brought out 3 pieces of floral muslin, and gave half a piece to each of the little girls. "It's time for girls to be pretty. Take this fabric back, don't put it in the box, and make new dresses for the children," Mrs. Li told the women. The women blushed when they were told about important things. They do have this plan. Even though life is easy now, they just can't let go of the word frugality. When it comes to a piece of clothing, I always want to wear the big one, the second one, and the second one and the third one. And these girls are the youngest in the family, and they really haven't seen a new piece of clothing in 3 to 5 years. But at this moment, Mrs. Lee made extra patches of fabric, and they gritted their teeth and made up their minds. A woman took the lead and responded, "Okay, let's listen to my aunt. We will cut them when we get back in the evening, and let them wear them in a few days." The little girls were so happy that they almost jumped up and clapped their hands. Mrs. Lee asked the women to rest under the eaves for a while, and then shouted, "Good news, take a box of snacks and eat them with the little sisters." Jian wanted to see what good things the queen had given her as compensation, but when grandma asked, she could only cooperate. So Mrs. Lee took the women to chat under the eaves. Jian accompanied a few little girls, eating snacks and playing. Jian has no prejudice against the little girls in the village. They don't always play together on weekdays, and they are indeed strangers now. But it is not difficult for her as an old aunt soul to make the little girls happy. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 539. Chapter 539. After passing this village there is no such shop. Every time the housekeeper of the home mansion comes over, he brings a lot of gadgets. Mrs. Wen, sister-in-law Qian, Hui Niang, and others will also make some odds and ends for her, and she has a basket of all kinds of sachets. At this moment, she took them all out. The little running carriage, the toy rabbit with ruby eyes sewn on, and the throwing sachets all aroused the emotions of the little girls in a short time, and they were having fun. The little girls have been warned too many times by their families, saying that Jian is the princess, and they cannot bully Jian, hurt Jian, or. Over time, they became afraid to approach the good news, and occasionally looked at it from a distance, fearing that they would be blamed. Unexpectedly, after playing with Jian for a while today, I felt that Jian was so good. So, one invited Jian to dig vegetables together, and the other invited Jian to play rubber band dancing. Jian didn't want to coax the child every day, so she quickly laid out the lessons she wanted to learn. Reading and needlework are fine, but when the little girls hear the good news, they also ask Zhang Shen for medicine and pharmacology, and they are all extremely sympathetic. They have never been to the small courtyard behind the village, but they have heard the screams coming from there. Jian actually has to go to such a terrible place. It's so amazing and so difficult. Needless to say, Jian rejected their invitation, which did not make the little girls unhappy, but instead gained a lot of sympathy. Soon, the sun rose above the head, and the women were going home to cook. Mrs. Lee came into the house and was very pleased to see that the children were playing well. She distributed the remaining snacks to the little girls and said with a smile, "It's almost noon. Go home with your mother to cook, and come back to play when you have free time." The little girls saluted one after another, waved to the good news, and then went out to meet the old lady and skipped home. Jian ran over and hugged her grandma, complaining and complaining, "Grandma, don't let me coax the kids anymore, I'm so tired." Mrs. Lee was so shaken that she felt dizzy. She knocked her fat granddaughter twice and finally stabilized herself, but she couldn't laugh or cry. She had good intentions and didn't want her granddaughter to be unsociable, but she didn't want her granddaughter to do it, so she didn't force her, so she said, "What are you talking about? You are also a child. It doesn't matter who coaxes whom. Forget it if you don't like playing with others. Let's go and look at the fabrics left for you and make more dresses. I'll ask your aunt to take you out to play in a few days." Mrs. Wen was rolling a piece of Sichuan brocade. When she saw them approaching, she smiled and said, "This brocade has elegant patterns. It will definitely be suitable for Hongyiing to make a coat and skirt in winter. Mrs. Lee was a little worried. I'm very busy at home, and I really didn't have time to do needlework at the moment. Speaking of which, it's time to collect autumn clothes and winter clothes again in a few days. Together, the clothes for more than 20 people are even more busy. Don't come. Jiyan immediately said, Grandma, find the fabric and send it to the home mansion. Just ask the embroiderer in the home mansion to help sew it. Mrs. Lee subconsciously responded, no, it would be too much trouble. Dongmei was on the side and spoke up to help the young master, old madam, you also know that the marquis is away from home for many years, and there are 7 or 8 embroiderers in the mansion. They are all worried about losing their jobs. On weekdays, I occasionally make clothes for the princess. I don't know how many people are vying for the skirt. Now that we have arranged some work for them, they will probably go crazy with joy. Their skills are finally put to use. Besides, we don't have to rush to wear these clothes and coats at home, so let them do it slowly, which is also tiring. Not even. So that's it, old Mrs. Lee nodded. Although the Marquis made it clear that the home mansion was for Jiyan, the Lee family always tried their best to stick to their duties and did not want to take advantage of the home mansion. Everyone looked down upon the Lee family, and their granddaughter was also embarrassed. After Dongmei started talking, she felt relieved and said, okay, let's figure out how many clothes we need to make, find out the materials, and send them to you as soon as possible. But when the clothes are finished, our family will give you some more. It doesn't matter how much hard work it is, it's all about my heart, I can't let it go in vain. Okay, when the time comes I will send the fabric and I will also bring the message, Dongmei responded with a smile. Sure enough, she turned her head and saw Jiyan making a small gesture towards her. Originally, Jiyan wanted to take advantage of these few days to sell the jade melons that the space had saved immediately. It just so happened that this time, she planned to follow Dongmei and Yeshan back to the city and take care of things together. Mrs. Lee didn't know that her fat granddaughter was planning to make a fortune again, so she happily took Mrs. Wen to pick out clothing materials. This piece is suitable for making coats and skirts for Jiyan, and that piece is suitable for making homely coats for Zhao Yuru and Tao Hongying. Li Laoer also wants to make a few sets of gowns, as well as Jiaran and brother Li Wenjuan is the new daughter-in-law and wants brightly colored ones, and Jiawen wants ones that are durable and stain-resistant. Uncle Zhao in the backyard needs 2 sets of coarse cloth for autumn clothes, and fine cotton for coats and trousers. Add more cotton. After all, they are always wandering around outside in winter. He was dizzy after hearing the good news and impatient to join in the fun, so he sneaked into the house and played with the box of jewelry. I have to say that the queen really spent a lot of money this time. Maybe I heard that she liked gold bracelets. There were actually 4 pairs of gold bracelets in the box. They were all solid. When I picked them up and bumped them, they felt very heavy. Any pair of them would take out 4 or 5 tails and send them to be melted and remade, which would be enough to make a set of noodle dishes. Jiyan Space has already stored a lot of them, so this time I took them all out generously and sent them to the Marquis mansion along with the fabrics, so that the master jewelry maker could figure out 4 sets of hair and faces. Just before, some gems that Jiyi's brother collected for her in the south can also be put to use. The gemstones are not big in size, but are of good quality. They are perfect for setting into earrings or hairpins. There happened to be 4 women in the family, old and young, grandma, mother, third uncle and sister-in-law Wenjuan, each with a new look. There is also a set of 12 flower hairpins in the box, corresponding to the months, with 1 flower for each month, each with its own beauty and exquisiteness. Jiyan plans to leave 3 of the winter branches to grandma, and the rest will be enough for the family to share. Mother, third uncle, sister-in-law Wenjuan, mother Hui, Mrs. Wen, and he, Dongmei, sister-in-law Kayang, there are exactly 9 people, 1 for each person. As for Shui Ling and Shui Yun, there is also a pair of silver bracelets with excellent carvings in the box. Of course, it is impossible not to keep good news to yourself. These were only divided into half of the boxes, and the remaining half was put into the makeup box by her. They were all in styles suitable for her age. Although I don't like the Queen, it is still okay to wear the jewelry given by the Queen when I go out as a guest in the future to show off. After Mrs. Lee and others finished dividing the cloth, they received jewelry from the fat girl, which was a surprise. Mrs. Wen wanted to refuse, but old Mrs. Lee said, "Just take it for you. This girl belongs to Pixio and can only go in and out. It is really not easy to separate things in her hands." After passing this village, this store no longer exists. Everyone laughed, and Mrs. Wen even inserted the flower hairpin directly into her temples, prompting Grandma He and Dongmei to do the same. Shui Ling and Shui Yun even smiled and shook the silver bracelets on their wrists, with flowers blooming on their faces. After lunch, Dongmei and Yashin were about to enter the city. Jiyan took Shui Ling with her and ran away with him on the pretext that he was bored at home. Not to mention the excitement at home, but that Li Laoer came to the academy today to give gifts. Dinjo, the Peng family, and Mr. Tang all have 4 jade melons and 20 golden fruits. Although there are not many, everyone knows that the melons in Broken Gold Beach are valuable. Even the Imperial Palace only gave away dozens of them. 4 jade melons, I can eat 2 at home, and 2 more as gifts from good friends or elders are enough. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 540. Chapter 540. Jie Huan is the Li family's most successful. Needless to say, Dinjo was so happy that he definitely kept Li Laoer for lunch, and also invited Mr. Peng and Mr. Tang over. The 4 of them got together, eating, drinking, and laughing. Li Laoer took the opportunity to invite them to celebrate the opening of Baiwen Garden. Of course, Dinjo and others responded repeatedly, especially Dinjo. He went to see it a few times last time, but he has never forgotten it since he came back. Li Laoer also reciprocated the favor and took the initiative to say that from now on, he could choose one day every month to send some famous flowers to the academy for students and gentlemen to enjoy. Dinjo's eyes lit up and he simply asked Mr. Tang to teach another tasting class. He didn't need to worry too much. He just told the students about the origin of the famous flowers and introduced some allusions and poems to enrich their knowledge. Mr. Tang immediately agreed, but asked to go to Baiwen Garden to select flowers in person. This is a bit rude. After all, the Li family did not confiscate a penny from the college. They were just volunteering to help and have friendly exchanges. If the flowers that Mr. Tang selected were particularly valuable, it would delay the sale of Baiwen Garden and ruin his business. But Li Laoer understood the stubbornness of scholars and was grateful to Mr. Tang for carefully guiding Jiaren's left-hand calligraphy, so he agreed without hesitation. This made Dinjo even more grateful, and his favorable impression of the Li family reached a new level. Even Mr. Tang gave Mr. Li a high look. After all, he knew that his request was a bit unkind, but the Li family actually agreed. This kind of tolerance and atmosphere is really rare. In the small courtyard of the Li family behind the shopping street, Wenjuan was worried about the 2 jade melons and 8 golden fruits in the house. The second uncle just said that his food has been sent to the canteen. These 2 jade melons and golden berries were left to her as a favor, and she also planned to send them to the academy to have a walk with the 2 Quanfu ladies. But the jade melon is too heavy, so we can't just carry it over. In the end, Xiaoyu had the solution. She found a pole and picked up 2 small baskets. There was a jade melon and 4 golden fruits in a basket, and he carried it easily and walked ahead. Wenjuan locked the door, held up an oil paper umbrella to block the sun, and followed behind with a smile. The 2 Quanfu ladies would give Wenjuan a share if they got good cloth or cooked delicious food at home. The more you move around, the closer you will get to each other. Now that they received the jade melon and golden fruit, they all accepted it with a smile on their face. At the end, the three of them sat down to chat, eat snacks and drink tea. They stayed busy for a long time before letting Wenjuan go to the canteen. At this time, the cafeteria had just opened. The students were full and needed to bring fruit drinks with ice back to the school building. Niu Heng and Lin Er were very busy, and Xiaoyu hurriedly ran to help. Zhao Yuru saw her daughter-in-law coming from a distance, so she stood at the door and waved. Wenjuan walked up the steps and was pulled in by her mother-in-law, who then stuffed a cool piece of jade melon into her hand. It turned out that the 2 jade melons sent by Li Laoer had been cut open. At this moment, everyone in the canteen, including Jiaran, Brother Li, and Brother Mao, are all eating melon. The village really doesn't have enough water to irrigate the fields. This melon is so sweet. Yes, wait for my uncle to come over and ask what the price is in the village. The price really should be increased. Even if it's 10 taels per piece, I think the rich families in the city will also be willing to buy it. I guess the price won't increase. The village chief doesn't want outsiders to accuse our village of being greedy for money. I guess so, but even if we sell it at the same price as last year, everyone will make a lot of money this year. Dazu and Uncle Wu were chatting while eating, their lips almost reaching their ears. Although they work in the canteen, they still get a share of the village's dividends. Who wouldn't be happy thinking about the money that will be distributed at the end of the year? Brother Li and Brother Mao had eaten lunch, and now they had eaten 4 or 5 pieces of jade melon in one breath. Jiaran stopped them and said, "You can't eat any more. Be careful, and you have to ask for leave to go to the toilet during class." Brother Li and Brother Cat were both a little unfinished, but they also stopped obediently. Jiaran took them to wash their hands and faces, then said goodbye to everyone and went to the school. Wenjuan ate a piece of jade melon and talked to her mother-in-law about giving gifts. Zhao Yuru smiled and said, "This is how human relationships are. You should move around when you need to, so that you can open your mouth easily when you need someone else. Don't just improvise." After saying that, she brought out a set meal and asked her daughter-in-law, "Did you not eat at noon? Take a bite quickly and then go back to look after the house." Wenjuan took it with a smile, found a quiet corner and ate slowly. Sometimes, she thought that it must be her deceased mother who was worried that no one loved her, so she blessed her to marry into the Li family and get such a good husband, in-laws, and a family of relatives. She was so grateful that she picked up a chopstick of mutton without paying attention. Normally, she didn't like the smell of mutton, but she could still eat it, but something seemed to be wrong today. When the mutton was swallowed, it was like poison, causing her to turn her head and vomit. Zhao Yuru is discussing with Aunt Wu San about making dough. They will bake some dough cakes and cook a pot of mutton soup in the evening to give the students a change of taste. Hearing the noise and turning around, they were all frightened and rushed forward. The rest of the people were also startled, and they all came over. Wenjuan's dress was stained with filth, so she blushed. She tried her best to hold back her nausea and said, "Mom, I'm fine. It's just that the mutton is too spicy. I couldn't hold it in for a while. Just take it slow and it'll be fine." Zhao Yuru was still worried and said, "No, is it because of the cold weather in the summer that my stomach is broken? It's better to see a doctor." Aunt Wu San suddenly shouted, "Oh, is Wenjuan pregnant? Have it?" Everyone was stunned after hearing this and didn't understand what was going on. On the other hand, an idea flashed in Zhao Yuru's mind, and she immediately became excited. She and Aunt Wu quickly helped Wenjuan to the side room and asked Wenjuan a few words in a low voice. Wenjuan blushed and agreed, and Aunt Wu rushed out of the door and quickly found the academy's enshrined doctor. After diagnosing the pulse, the old doctor smiled and gave everyone great news. "It's indeed Zimai, it's been 2 months." The whole canteen was boiling, and everyone was extremely happy. It is said that Lao Li's family is prosperous, but this is too prosperous. Seeing it, this fourth generation of seeing is about to be born. Especially Zhao Yuru and Li Lao-san, they couldn't close their mouths with laughter. They are actually going to be grandparents. It happened that Li Lao-er was drunk and came over from Dean Zhou's house. Hearing that he was going to be the second grandfather, he was also pleasantly surprised. He smiled and said, "Jie Huan, this child who usually keeps quiet, is actually the most popular in the family one of. Not only is he the first to get married, but now he is adding a great-grandson to the family. Moreover, Jiaran is 1 year older than Jiawan, and I don't know how long I will have to study before I can get married and have children. There is also family righteousness, which is basically can't catch the shadow." Everyone laughed, and Third Aunt Wu persuaded me with her clever words, "Uncle, why are you in a hurry? You can get started quickly. Besides, it's not that our young master doesn't marry a wife, it's because he hasn't found a suitable one. When they hear that they are all uncles and uncles, they may be anxious there will be good news next year as well." Li Lao laughed when he heard it, hurriedly said goodbye to everyone, and hurried home to tell his mother the good news. Old Mrs. Li didn't know that her great-grandson was about to be born again. She was staring at the mess all over the place. End of this chapter.